Hello and welcome to our weekly show. I am Zainab Daba and here are today's stories. Students, workers and security guards at the American University in Cairo went on a strike earlier demanding the decrease of students' tuition and an increase for the workers' salary among many other demands. Dalia Ashmawi has more on this.
Lisa Anderson, president of the American University in Cairo, has responded to students yesterday afternoon after the university's community has been in strike for over a week. Students, custodians, security guards, and DDC workers all marched together inside campus. Students were demanding a decrease of 9% in the tuition fees, while staff members and security guards asked for a higher pay, health insurance, meal allowances, change of uniforms, and the weekend to become an official holiday.
وموجود بالبي ان جي وموجود السكيورتي. احنا مش جبنه واحنا موجودين وعايزين مطالبنا تتحقق. اذا كان الراجل اللي هو ليفل 2 اللي هو بياخد 1200 جنيه في الشهر وده حضرتك عايز يرفع يبقى ليفل 3 ليفل 4 يوصل مثلا ل 2000 جنيه يوصل 1800 جنيه.
Earlier, Anderson agreed to hold a private meeting at the Basili Hall with representatives of several groups who were holding the protest in hopes of coming to a conclusion. Students were not pleased to meet with Anderson at the Basili Hall. Instead, they grew angry and defied the open forum and blocked anybody who tried to enter. They maintained their position on meeting with Anderson at the Hus in their territory.
The problem is Lisa Anderson as well as the UC administration, they're still treating us as if this forum is being conducted out of sympathy. It is the students who demanded this dialogue, not them. Hence, it is the students who set the venue for this dialogue. Lisa Anderson said this venue will be in a closed location in Basili Hall, while the people on strike demanded that it be in the Hus in front of the administration building because this is where the strike began.
This year, it's the students, the security, the custodians, all of us are standing together. We're all going for our demands. We're all standing in the same stand. No one is going back. All of us are standing. All our demands are met.
The crowds remained gathered on Hus grounds, an administration building, till Anderson agreed to meet with them at the place they demanded. Over the weekend, several compromises were made between Anderson, the Students' Union president, and the board in a meeting which led to peace amongst the university's community. Dalia Ashmawi, AUC-TV, Cairo.
Doctors staged demonstrations against their working conditions. Details are in the following report. Young doctors protested out the cabinet and the Ministry of Health as a part of a strike they staged 2 weeks ago. They demanded an entire revamping within the health sector in Egypt for the sake of the patient and the doctor.
والله احنا عاملين اضراب يمكن بقالنا دخلنا في الاسبوع الثاني من يوم 10 ومطالبنا على رأسها طبعا كلها ليها يعني يمكن موضوع واحد هو إصلاح المنظومة الصحية بشكل عام. أوله طبعا إن الأطباء والكادر الصحي كله هم ناس يعني لا يقلوا أهمية عن باقي يعني هم جنود في الجبهة ولازم يبقوا في الشريحة الأول ولازم يبقى ليهم مرتبات تقدر التعب اللي هم فيه عشان يقدروا يخدموا المريض ويقدروا يعني يدوا له حقوقه. الحاجة الثانية طبعا هو توفير الخدمة الصحية الصحيحة للمريض في كل الأماكن اللي موجودة داخل المستشفى سواء من أدوية صفة الصيدلي طبعا أو من أجهزة طبية في الاستقبال وفي باقي أقسام المستشفى.
Demands also included reformulation of the executive regulations in the health ministry wages structure and better salaries to support their living.
تغيير منظومة القوانين واللوائح اللي بتعمل تحتها وزارة الصحة لأن اللوائح دي بتساعد المسؤول الفاسد إنه يفسد أكتر وتبقى السرقة قانوني وبتعطل الدكتور وبتمنعه عن الدراسة المستمرة. إزاي يبقى مرتبي 300 جنيه ومصاريف الماجستير 1500 أو 3000 بتختلف من جامعة لجامعة.
Not only did the doctors demand better working conditions, but also resignation of what they called remnants of the old regime.
احنا بنناشد بس رئاسة الوزراء وبنناشد المجلس العسكري وبنناشد الوزير بتاعنا الدكتور عمرو حلمي اللي من ساعة ما مسك وهو عمال بيدينا في وعود ولا ما نفذش أي حاجة فيها. نقول له يا سيادة الوزير لو كنت عايز فعلا تصلح في وزارة الصحة، أول حاجة لازم تعملها لازم تقيل قيادات الفاسدة بتاعة وزارة الصحة.
An important issue doctors raised was securing hospitals that are continuously attacked by thugs, according to them.
النهارده كل يوم دكتور بيعتدى عليه. امبارح من حوالي اسبوعين 2 دكاتره في مستشفى بني سويف تم الاعتداء عليهم ودخلوا رعايه مركزه. امبارح ممرضه حامل تم الاعتداء عليها واجهضت امبارح.
Doctors have been staging demonstrations after the 25th of January revolution. But when their demands will be met, and are they going to reach a compromise? Zainab Dabr, ACTV, Cairo. The school year has started with some troubles for students and parents as well as teachers who started a strike to get their demands fulfilled. They were not even satisfied with the latest official statements that assured salaries and bonus raise. Safa Ali reports.
Despite the official statements that came in favor of the teachers, they decided to protest before the building of the Council of Ministers to declare their refusal to them, and they're willing to continue the strike.
التسكين بيسكن الشعب المصري. المدرسين المدرس دي كرامه، مدرس هيبه واحترام. فين المكانه بتاعته؟ اين المدرسين؟ المدرس مش لاقي مصر يجيب سعادتك. لو انا عندي 4 ايام مش عارف اصرف عليهم، مفيش تامين صحي بتاعي، مفيش نقابه.
اديني مرتب معقول يعيشني محترم بين الناس، ما بقاش مكسوف ان انا اقول قدام الناس ان انا مدرس.
اول طلب لينا من غير كلام يا جماعه اقاله وزير التربيه والتعليم. وزير التربيه والتعليم احمد جمال الدين عضو لجنه سياسه. خلاص؟ يعني ازاي يبقى الحزب الوطني منحل وازاي جمال الدين هو اللي يمسك وزاره التربيه والتعليم؟
اطالب بتحقيق العداله الاجتماعيه في المرتبات 3000 جنيه حد ادنى وارجاع ال 200% واصلاح المنظومه التعليميه.
While the soldiers and policemen were standing ready for any escalation of the event, protesting teachers claimed they had been treated violently.
لقيت 2 عساكر راحوا زنقني بالدوارع بتاعتهم في دماغي، وراح واحد ضاربني بالعصايه على كتفي، مش عارف احرك دراعي.
الجيش النهارده ضرب المعلمين. الجيش ضربنا النهارده عشان يهرب عصام شرف.
That protest came after a week of strike in many schools across the country. Al-Amal School in Sheikh Zayed was one of the schools with striking teachers.
بالنسبة للمعلم طبعا مظلوم بدرجة 100% في مصر عموما يعني، واحنا طبعا بنطالب ان تحسين احوال المعلم، وتحسين احوال المعلم هيحسن برضو احوال المجتمع وهيحسن من الجودة في التعليم.
With the school and classes are nearly empty, students in the beginning of the school years are still lost between the minister statements and the teachers who want more than just raise in salaries.
أنا عندي 3 بنات مش عارفين نعلمهم ولا نوديهم فين. الإضراب ده إيه سببه؟ ليه الوزير ما يجيش ويحل المشكلة؟ هو الإدارات التعليمية ووكيل أول الوزارة.
Case is not closed yet, as the teachers gave a 1-week time limit to the Prime Minister to respond to their demands, of which resignation of Ahmed Gamal al-Din is a priority. Safa Ali, AUC TV, Cairo.
How will the new academic year start? Will it start actually? Egyptian public universities professors are threatening to strike if the government do not listen to their demands in electing their administration. More on this with Aisha Al-Haddad.
3,000 Egyptian public university professors protested today in front of the government headquarters, demanding the dismissal of the current university administration. They objected on a law that was issued to manage the elections, which was different from what they proposed.
احنا اتعرض علينا استبيان وزع على كل جامعات مصر وعلى كل مجالس الأقسام في جامعات مصر بوسيلة وبآلية لاختيار القيادات. والاقتراحين كانوا المقترحين اللي هم كان عليهم الاستبيان كانوا منزلين لنا من عند سيادة الوزير، وتم الاقتراع على ب 85% على استبيان منهم، وفوجئنا بعد الموافقة على هذا الاستبيان اللي كان لتحديد آلية لاختيار القيادات تغير تماما وبقى في مقترح ثالث بعد ما طلعت نتيجة الاستبيان.
The issued law required a definite quorum for the elections to be valid.
ليه تعملي زي الحركات بتاعت انتخابات اتحاد الطلبة انك تقولي لي لو ما حضرش 30% نعين بقى؟ مين يعني 30% في كلية العلوم دول 200 عضو هيئة التدريس، بقى كلام ال 200 ولا كلام حضرتك؟ يعني وبعدين انا هفترض انك عايزه تعملي نصاب صغير خالص 20 نفر، ليه نعين برضه؟ ليه مش يعني المفروض الحاله اللي ما تعملش فيها انتخاب تمشي بالاقدميه، فحتى لو التغيير صغير او ملوش معنى او شكلي برضه عيب، لانه في فكره ان ليه بتتنوا على كلامنا؟ احنا مجالس الاقسام اللي هي فيها كل اعضاء التدريس وافقت على حاجه يبقى خلاص تمشي.
Although some think that the difference between the minister's proposals and the professor's proposal is in the format, others believe it's a retreat.
طبعا بتؤثر جوهريا في جوهر العمليه الانتخابيه، وبالتالي احنا النهارده ممتنعين عن الانتخابات. يعني احد القرارات اللي اتخذت النهارده في المؤتمر انه احنا حجمنا عن الانتخابات اللي هتبتدي من اول بكره، والاكشن ابتدت من امبارح بانتخاب اللجنه المشرفه على الانتخابات، انما النهارده في اضراب تام عن الانتخابات دي.
Most of the professors agreed to strike at the beginning of the academic year.
أنا فكرة الإضراب معاها، لأن زي ما بقول لحضرتك إحنا بادئين الكلام من ساعة الثورة، إيه اللي تم؟ مفيش حاجة، دي مش مطالب فئوية، يعني إحنا قلنا كمان إن بند الفلوس حطوا جدول زمني وإحنا موافقين عليه. طب إقالات القيادات الجامعية تضر بإيه دي؟ إن أنا أشيل الناس الموجودة دلوقتي.
طبعا اتفقنا الاتفاق الأصلي إنه مفيش دراسة. الدراسة لن تبدأ. والاساتذه اللي هم عاملين نفسهم قيادات دول بالعافيه على زمايلهم مش هنديهم فرصه يعملوا اي حاجه.
Whether this university will open up its gates in the coming days or not, professors say it's up to the Minister of Higher Education to decide. Aisha Al-Haddad, AUC TV, Cairo.
Earlier, we had an interview with Ms. Amira Gabr, one of the organizers of AUC strike.
Hello and welcome to today's show. I'm Dalia Ashmawi. Today we have a special guest with us in our studio, Ms. Amira Gabr. She fought alongside students, workers, and security guards earlier this month at a strike here in university. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Dalia, for having me.
First, I wanted to start out with a very obvious question. How long was this strike being prepared for, and who actually prepared it?
It's quite an obvious question, but it's also very difficult to answer. The strike has been prepared for quite some time now, months actually, and you see the students are quite upset with the increase in fees, especially when they compare it to the academic services that they're receiving or any services that they're receiving on campus. So a bunch of student leaders, quote unquote, tried to talk to President Lisa Anderson last semester, negotiations. They talked for a bit, but they reached a deadlock. And those student leaders included Ahmed Ali, the SU president. Anyway, that's with regards to students. With regards to the workers, the custodial staff, they've had problems since last year. And they had their own strike last fall, and the security guards also, they have been quite upset. I remember that one of them called me the week before the actual strike began, and he was like, we're doing something and please come and try to come, and this is happening and that's happening and stuff like that. They have a lot of problems with regards to their payrolls. The system is unfair.
Regarding the strike that happened late of last year, could you tell us the difference between this strike and the one that happened a year ago?
The strike that happened a year ago, which is known as the AUC workers strike, it was focused on the custodial staff. And there were other segments of the AUC community that were supporting it, including students who have, at the time, they circulated a petition, and it was signed by a number between 2,000 and 2,500 students, if not more. And there were faculty involved, and some staff members who remain unnamed, or they're anonymous or whatever. So it was focused on the custodial staff and their demands. Whereas this one, it was much bigger, because it was the custodial staff, the DDC workers, Digital Development Center, and the security staff, and the students. These are 4 different segments of the AUC community.
How effective did you see last year's strike?
I personally think it was quite effective. For the first time, we had an actual strike, because what happened in fall 2008 when we got here to campus and was called a strike wasn't a strike. And later the following semester, the whole 2+2 schedule thing, that was not a strike either, because when you strike, you stop working until you reach a certain demand. So with the workers last year, that was the first actual strike. But that's one thing. Another thing is that the students were supporting the demands of the workers. That in and by itself also is something very positive, because it proved that AUC students and faculty and staff and all of these people were not living in a bubble. We're concerned about the, I don't want to say common or average citizen, but then this is the way they get described in the media. So they are concerned with workers' rights. They're not as elitist and as AUCs as people like to describe. But that's the second reason why I think it was successful. A more important reason why I think it's successful is that it paved the way for the independent syndicate. That is very important. There's a tendency in AUC and in Egypt at large to think that when you demonstrate and when you go on strike, you're going to get results right away. Honestly, that's not going to happen. What happens is that you need to be part of the system, part of the change, and change comes slow, because a change that comes slowly and effectively lasts, whereas change that comes quickly, just as quickly as it came, it quickly goes back. So I think it was quite successful, but what I found a problem with it is that the workers entered in all of these negotiations, and then they went into the independent syndicate and all of these things. I don't want to say they got nothing, but I find it very, very demotivating and meaningless that earlier this month they were still holding talks about one of the simplest demands that they had last year, which is having a 5-day work week. It's been an entire year and we have not resolved that situation. That means that there is too much bureaucracy, it's slow, and we're not getting anywhere.
Back to the strike that happened earlier this month, around the 3rd or 4th day, when there was the open, in the Basili Hall, the open forum that Dr. Lisa Anderson wanted to do, a lot of students began to actually shift their opinion, which was actually, we saw through the strike that happened in front of the Basili Hall itself, the way that they were rebelling. What do you think of that?
دلوقتي okay. How can I phrase this? You see, there was a list of demands, and there were talks about having an open forum and discussing them, because everybody had decided that we are not going to negotiate behind closed doors. So let's talk openly in front of everybody, in front of the entire university. So that is the idea of the open forum. The open forum was scheduled to be held in the Vasili Auditorium on Wednesday from 1 p.m. to approximately 3 to discuss all of these demands. There was a quote-unquote كده headquarters meeting on Tuesday night, because I was involved in this whole idea of the open forum, and you know, let's have one, and organizing it and stuff like that.
This meeting was between students only, or were there staff members and, for example, the student union?
It was students, the student leaders, the student union, the SJB, the Senate, all sorts of people. I was there on the phone because it was late at night, and they stayed here until like 7 a.m. Anyway, there was a debate about whether to go to Basili or not. There was an opinion that was like, going to Basili is not a bad idea. Let's see what they have to say and let's start negotiating, because we're not going to continue this deadlock. That was one side. And there was a side that was like, no, we want them to come to our playground.
Okay. What does this establish?
Our territory, that we don't want the forum to be held in Basili. We want the forum to be held in the Hus courtyard. And there was debates throughout the night. Because the other side, the first side would say, yeah, but we already agreed that we'll go to Basili, so it will look bad. And then President Lisa sent an email, which is a response to each and every demand. And most of the demands were refused. Some of them were refused outright refusal, and some of them we got an explanation that we're not convinced with. And this is when the decision was made that we are to boycott the Basili Forum. The strikers are going to boycott the Basili Forum. On a personal level, I did not agree with that decision, but I respected the mass decision. It's a collective one, and so it was. There are people who went to Basili at the time of the beginning of the forum, and they chanted. Some chanted politely, whereas others were impolite. And that I was completely against. And I asked them to leave. I told them, if you don't want to be in Basili, then leave. Don't be in Basili. But if someone wants to enter Basili and hear the administrators out, they have every right to.
What was their reaction? Or
They
how
left.
did some people reacted?
They left.
They left.
They left. But it was not a pleasant sight. Not at all.
Did you enter the Basili Hall?
I did.
And how was that?
I entered the Basili auditorium to ask President Lisa and the entire panel a question.
What was that question?
A lot of people talked about that question. You see, that the panel was composed of 5 individuals. And those are President Lisa Anderson, Vice President Brian McDougall, Mr. Fouad Seis, also Vice President, and Dr. Ashrafi, and Dr. Medhat Haroun. 3 people of those 5, their spouses are working in the university.
How do you know that?
I have inside information.
Can we have some kind of an idea of this inside information?
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I have to protect my sources.
Okay.
So President Lisa's husband is working in the university, and so is the wives of Mr. Brian McDougall and of Mr. Fouad Seis. A while ago, there was a new set of new rules and regulations that relatives of the first degree are not going to be working at the university. So if you're working at the university and you have a son, a daughter, a wife, a husband, a father, a mother who's working at the university, someone is going to end up being let go. But not with the senior administrators. The answer that I got was not convincing. You know, I went there, I laid a bomb, and I left.
I don't want to sidetrack our conversation to what happened in the forum, but I want to have your opinion about after the Basili Forum, that later on that day and the following day, and
Later on that day, the students entered the administration building.
No, not about the administration building, but about the fact that students themselves, the population of the students that were attending the strike began to decrease. You started to see that students were no longer that interested anymore. Why do you think that was?
Okay. AUC students have a tendency of not being all that interested in such things, unfortunately. This tendency is being decreased as time passes by. This tendency is being decreased as time passes by. But the problem in that issue is that not only did some people get bored, but some people felt that the decision-making process, something like entering the administration building or taking down the flag or any of these things, were monopolized by a certain group of strikers. And that is a huge problem with the strike. It was a massive one, and maybe that's why it was so difficult to organize. But last year, I remember we organized committees very early on in the process. Vigilance committee, a media committee, a documentation committee, a legal one, an organizational one. We organized all sorts of committees. And it was well known who's responsible for what. And people were part of the decision-making process. But when things are happening and you feel that this group is talking at this point, and this group is talking at Saladero, and this group is talking at I don't know where, and this group is talking inside the administration building, people feel that they're not taking part, that they are just followers, and they don't want to be followers. And that's one of the main reasons why the numbers went down. And another main reason why the numbers went down is the flag incident.
We wanted to know more about this flag incident, but unfortunately we're out of time, and maybe another conversation another day.
As you wish.
But thank you so much for joining us, Amira.
You're more than welcome.
It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you at home for watching us. See you next week.
That's all for today. Thank you for watching.